Hello, I'm Evely and I will tell you one story. Let's go. In the heart of a forgotten forest where gnarled trees whispered secrets of a long-extinguished era, an ancient legend slithered through the minds of the nearby villagers. They spoke in hushed tones of mysterious eyes that gleamed in the dark, a pair of incandescent orbs that emerged only when the night was at its blackest. These eyes, said to be the silent sentinels of a malevolent force, haunted the periphery of every tale and nightmare in the hamlet. For generations, the lore had grown with each account of an unearthly glow flickering among the shadows, each retelling steeped in dread and trembling uncertainty. On a bitter autumn evening when twilight surrendered its last vestiges of warmth and the cold crept under every door, a young man named Elias decided to confront the unknown. Despite the villagers' dire warnings and the suffocating air of superstition that clung to the forest's edge, Elias's curiosity overpowered his fear. He set out alone into the woodland, determined to unearth the truth behind the eyes that gleamed in the dark. With each tentative step on the leaf-strewn path, his heart pounded like a frantic drum, a staccato beat that seemed to merge with the eerie silence of the forest. The narrow trail twisted and turned beneath a skeletal canopy, the moon a fragile sliver in an otherwise ink-black sky. Elias's lantern cast trembling shadows that danced among ancient tree trunks, each gnarled branch a potential harbinger of terror. The deeper he ventured, the more the forest revealed its uncanny pulse. A low, rhythmic hum seemed to vibrate beneath his feet, a sound so primordial that it evoked the forgotten memories of a world before man. The wind, carrying the tang of damp earth and decay, whispered unintelligible warnings as though the forest itself mourned the souls it had claimed. Without warning, the oppressive silence was shattered by the rustle of leaves and the snap of brittle twigs. Elias halted, straining to discern the source of the disturbance. Then, emerging from the inky void between ancient oaks, they appeared, a pair of eyes, glowing with a spectral luminescence that defied nature. They floated, untethered, their silver glow piercing the darkness like twin beacons of an otherworldly intelligence. Mesmerized and horrified, Elias found himself drawn deeper into the labyrinth of shadow and light, the dichotomy of fascination and dread warring within his soul. He pressed on until he reached a clearing where nature's cathedral arched overhead in a display of eerie majesty. Here, the eyes grew bolder, appearing closer and more insistent. Their light, unnaturally vivid, seemed to pulse with an unspoken malice, a silent promise of retribution for those who dared trespass. The clearing bore the scars of forgotten rituals, scorched symbols etched into weathered stone and shattered remnants of talismans scattered like the broken dreams of the past. Each mark hinted at desperate attempts to ward off the encroaching darkness, and now they served as grim monuments to an ancient curse. As Elias stepped into the clearing, the ground trembled beneath his feet, and the cool air thickened with a presence both unseen and palpable. A guttural whisper, not quite human and not entirely animal, slithered through the trees. Its sound carried the weight of ancient pacts and eldritch curses, a language older than time itself. The eyes flickered in response, their glow intensifying as if feeding on the rising terror. For a moment, Elias felt suspended in a nightmare, a liminal space where every instinct urged him to flee even as a darker fascination compelled him to learn more. Then, as if the forest were a living entity orchestrating its own dreadful symphony, the atmosphere shifted. The trees swayed in an orchestrated cadence, and shadows coalesced into shifting, ambiguous forms. Elias's vision blurred between reality and hallucination as spectral figures materialized at the periphery of his sight, ghostly silhouettes that drifted silently among the trunks. Amid this phantasmal parade, the eyes maintained their relentless vigil, their unblinking stare burning into his very soul. It was as if they were not merely watching him, but marking him as the next soul to be ensnared by the forest's ancient malice. Suddenly, a sharp, insistent scratching shattered the building tension. Elias spun around to see a thick curtain of underbrush rustling violently as though something unseen scrambled away from the pale light of his lantern. The sound was quickly joined by a low, chilling laugh, a sound that seemed to slither around him, echoing off the trees with maddening persistence. In that instant, the realization struck him. These eyes were not isolated phenomena but the vanguard of a larger, more sinister presence that lurked within the forest's depths. Every step Elias had taken now reverberated with the pulse of impending doom. The forest itself appeared to shudder, its ancient heartbeat quickening as the dark force stirred from its slumber. In the suffocating silence that followed, the gleaming eyes locked onto him with a final, unwavering intensity and unspoken promise that his intrusion would not go unpunished. As the trees exhaled a slow, almost imperceptible sigh and the darkness deepened around him, Elias stood paralyzed, caught in the relentless grip of an ancient terror. Shaken and alone, he began a desperate retreat along a path that seemed to twist and warp beneath the oppressive power of the night. The forest conspired against his every move, branches reaching out like skeletal fingers, each one brushing against him as if in a cruel warning. Behind him, the eyes continued their silent, relentless pursuit, their glow a constant reminder of the secrets and curses that dwelled in the heart of the eternal dark. And then, as if the forest itself had reached a crescendo of dread and eerie stillness descended, a pause in the macabre symphony. In that suffocating silence, the eyes shone with a final, unyielding stare, promising that this was only the beginning of a terror that would soon engulf him completely. The night air trembled with unanswered questions. What unspeakable truths lay hidden behind those unblinking eyes? And what fate awaited Elias as the shadows closed in, hungry for the souls of the unwary? With his fate uncertain and the forest's malevolent energy pressing in from all sides, Elias could only stand and stare into the abyss, his heart pounding in sync with the dark pulse of an ancient, unforgiving force. The night had barely begun to reveal its horrors, and already the promise of unspeakable terror loomed like a specter in the inky blackness. The forest had shed its familiar guise, morphing into a realm of perpetual nightmare where the boundary between reality and delusion blurred into an inescapable maelstrom of terror. Elias pressed forward, his trembling limbs barely able to support the weight of dread and disbelief. The path, once a straightforward trail through autumnal decay, had transformed into a sinuous labyrinth, each crooked branch and gnarled root conspiring to mislead him deeper into the heart of the ancient curse. The lingering silver gleam of the eyes, now more numerous and unervingly omnipresent, seemed to float on the air like baleful sentinels, following his every faltering step. As he staggered onward, the oppressive hush was punctured by a chorus of ghastly sounds. In the distance, a low, keening wail rose and fell in a rhythm that mimicked the sorrowful beating of a colossal heart. It was as if the forest itself mourned a lost eon of innocence, its voice resonating with the grief of countless souls long devoured by its insatiable hunger. Elias's mind raced, each beat of his pulse echoing the mournful lament, drawing him inexorably into a realm where time and memory unraveled. The very air shimmered with a sickly phosphorescence, and every shadow held a secret, every rustle of leaves whispered of unspeakable horrors lurking just beyond the veil of sight. Soon, the landscape gave way to an expanse that defied earthly logic, a clearing encircled by colossal, ancient trees whose bark was etched with cryptic symbols and the scars of past defilements. At the center of this clearing lay a vast, stagnant pool of water, its surface mirror-smooth under the baleful light of the spectral eyes. Drawn to it like a moth to a flame, Elias approached, his steps measured yet desperate, as if each footfall might offer a clue to the dread mystery that enshrouded him. The pool, dark as obsidian and disturbed only by the gentle ripple of unseen currents, reflected not only his terrified visage but also a shifting tableau of horrors, faces of the damned, contorted in eternal agony, and ghostly forms that seemed to reenact moments of unspeakable torment. In that harrowing reflection, Elias saw something unthinkable, an echo of his own face, yet with eyes that burned with the same unholy luminescence as those stalking him in the dark. A chill, deeper than any autumnal frost, crept along his spine as he realized that the gleaming eyes were not mere observers, but harbingers of an ancient metamorphosis. The revelation struck him with the force of a tidal wave. He was inexorably entwined with this malevolent force, his destiny bound to the forest's insidious legacy. The pool's surface began to swirl, distorting his reflection into a nightmarish mosaic of faces and forms, each one a testament to lives claimed by the forest's unyielding hunger. As if summoned by the tumult of his realization, the forest erupted into a frenzy of movement and sound. The trees themselves groaned and contorted, their branches reaching out like the gnarled fingers of forgotten deities, desperate to grasp the living essence of anyone who dared trespass. A cacophony of guttural voices rose from the undergrowth, a dissonant litany of incantations and curses that clawed at the fringes of sanity. Amid this chaos, the gleaming eyes multiplied in an almost maddening dance, swirling around Elias with a hypnotic rhythm that threatened to erase his very sense of self. Elias stumbled backward, his mind reeling as he struggled to differentiate between the tangible horrors and the phantasms of his unraveling psyche. Every instinct screamed for escape, yet his feet remained rooted to the sodden earth. A sudden, thunderous crack split the air, a sound not unlike the anguished cry of a dying beast. Before him, an enormous oak, ancient beyond reckoning, split asunder, revealing within its hollow trunk a chamber bathed in an eerie, pulsating light. From this fissure emerged a figure draped in tattered robes, its face obscured by a hood. The figure moved with an unsettling grace, its presence exuding an aura of both dread and sorrow. In a voice that trembled like the rustle of dead leaves, it spoke, "You have been chosen, Elias, your soul is the key to our liberation." The words reverberated in his mind, each syllable a thread weaving him tighter into the tapestry of the curse. The hooded figure advanced slowly, and with every step, the forest around them seemed to recoil and then surge forward in a vicious cycle of motion. The spectral eyes flared with a ghastly light as if in recognition of the ancient ritual now unfolding before Elias's horrified gaze. The figure's hands moved in intricate, deliberate gestures, and the very ground shuddered in response, as if acknowledging the summoning of a primordial force. The air grew thick with the metallic tang of blood and the fetid odor of decay as unseen forces converged in a climactic crescendo of dread. In that crushing moment, Elias's internal torment became a tangible reality. The spectral figure's incantations unlocked a torrent of memories not his own, a cascade of centuries of suffering, betrayal, and the relentless cycle of death that had long plagued this forsaken place. He saw visions of other hapless wanderers, their eyes mirroring his own terror, now trapped in an endless loop of torment, their souls forever enslaved to the ancient power that ruled the forest. The gleaming eyes were the gatekeepers of this nightmare, the eternal sentinels of a legacy that had transcended time and space. With a final, soul-crushing surge, the power of the forest descended upon Elias. He felt an invisible force clawing at his heart, tearing at the very fabric of his being. The overwhelming terror threatened to drown him in a sea of despair. Yet, in the midst of that overwhelming darkness, a spark of defiance flickered within him, a primal instinct, the last vestige of a man determined to reclaim his fate. With a guttural cry that reverberated through the cursed clearing, Elias lunged forward, desperate to confront the spectral figure and break free of the insidious grip that had claimed him. But fate, as it always does in this accursed domain, was unyielding. The hooded figure's eyes, now unveiled to reveal a void of infinite sorrow, met his gaze. In that moment, time seemed to shatter. Elias's defiant cry was swallowed by the cacophony of spectral lamentations and the relentless murmur of the ancient curse. The forest, in a final act of cruel irony, enveloped him in its dark embrace. The luminous eyes burned brighter than ever before, marking him not as a victim but as the next vessel of its undying malice. As the clearing fell into a heavy silence punctuated only by the distant, echoing keening of tormented souls, the ancient forest resumed its watchful vigil. The spectral figure vanished into the swirling mists, leaving behind only the memory of a promise that the cycle of horror was unending and that every soul who dared trespass into the realm of the gleaming eyes would ultimately be claimed. And somewhere, in the deepest recesses of that nightmarish labyrinth, Elias's anguished cries mingled with the eternal lament of the damned, a testament to the fact that in this forsaken place, terror was not a passing shadow but a living, breathing force that would haunt the world for eternity. Thank you very much and see you all in the next video.